Before my second baby was born, I said multiple times, I will never have a baby who refuses a bottle. And then guess what happened? He refused the bottle. But the kicker, I had a trip scheduled when he was 5.5 months old, and we tried and tried and tried, but never got him to take the bottle. So if your baby is refusing the bottle right now and you're feeling exhausted or scared or you're about to head back to work, this video is for you. And by the end of it, you're going to understand why it is happening and you'll have steps to do to help your baby get back to the bottle. So what is bottle refusal? Bottle refusal is anytime your baby persistently rejects the bottle. They could be frustrated or angry, or sometimes they just don't know what to do inside of their mouth. They might move their tongue around the bottle, or it seems like they're like pushing it out like, There are two different categories of bottle refusal, and what we do and how we handle bottle refusal is based on those categories. So the first is situational. That is, there is something going on that is making your baby refuse the bottle. Sometimes it's teething or ear infections or colds, or there's something that has changed in the environment, and then your baby starts to refuse the bottle. The other is non-situational, or something that's functional. So something that's happening inside of the mouth that's making your baby refuse the bottle. A lot of it is skill-based. So they might have had the skill before and then they lost the skill. The most common time that I see bottle refusal is around this 3 to 4 month mark. The story that I hear a lot from families is that their babies used to take a bottle really easily, and then they defaulted to breastfeeding for whatever reason. So maybe they went on vacation. That was my story, is that we went on vacation, we defaulted to breastfeeding because it was a little bit easier, and then we never were able to get him back on the bottle. And what families don't know is that there's two significant changes that are happening in the mouth around this 3 to 4 month period. The suck reflex is being integrated, which means before, when you put a bottle in your baby's mouth, there's a reflex that triggers them to suck. But after they get a little bit older, this goes away. So then if you put a bottle in their mouth, they don't necessarily have that. They need to have the skill to be able to actually take the bottle. And then the second thing that's happening is that there's a lot of changes in the actual mouth and jaw and the structures of the mouth. So with these changes, if they haven't had the skill of sucking on that bottle, and then we put a bottle in their mouth, some babies really can't stabilize the bottle or have something going on inside of the mouth that makes it really hard for them to actually suck and swallow. So as I said, my second baby, named Elliot, he never ended up taking the bottle. And I don't say this to scare you, but I say it so you can be prepared. So we started trying to introduce the bottle back in around 3 months, and he had a lot of feeding issues beforehand, but he just could never figure out what to do with the bottle in his mouth. So we would put the bottle in and his tongue would go all around the bottle. He would push it out, push it side to side, but can never really coordinate the suck and the swallow. What we did is I still went on my trip because it was already pre-scheduled and I would have been out a lot of money and I was very excited for it. I was gone for about 2.5, 3 days. And we did something that wasn't necessarily ideal. We started solids a little bit early, and then we gave him baby cereal mixed with breast milk and formula. So I pumped a little bit beforehand, and then he had some formula there, and he ended up doing just great. I wanted to share because if your baby never ends up taking a bottle, there are paths forward. What I want you to do is try the tips that I'm going to give you next. And then if that is not working, I want you to find a lactation professional, a speech language pathologist, somebody who knows about bottle refusal and can assess your baby's mouth to figure out what is going on, give you tools and tips and exercises to do, and then hopefully your baby will take a bottle. Or if they're older, maybe 6 to 9 months, then we can start working on cup feeding. Before I get to the tips, make sure to hit subscribe for all of your bite-sized pieces of feeding information. Tip 1, I want you to find a different nipple shape. So by the time families have seen me because their baby's refusing bottles, oftentimes they have tried 5 different bottles. I'm more concerned about the shape versus the actual bottle. So you might want to find something that has more of the triangular shape. You can also find something that has more of like a bulb shape, or some of them that have a flat nipple, and different babies respond to different bottles differently. Tip 2, I want to make sure that the flow is right. So this is not the time that we want to focus on having the slowest flow bottle possible. We want your baby to be able to get the milk fast enough, but it doesn't need to be so fast that it's pouring out of the sides of their mouth. So the extra slow flow, the slow flow might not be the right fit for your baby. Tip 3, and this is a loaded one. I want you to change the position that your baby feeds in. It sounds counterintuitive because oftentimes we're feeding more paced or they're semi-reclined. Now we want to feed your baby when they're laying down. We want gravity to help with actually getting the milk out and into their mouth. So sometimes when babies are refusing the bottle, it's because they don't feel stabilized. So their body doesn't feel stabilized, their mouth doesn't feel stabilized. Before you actually introduce the bottle, you can give your baby the nipple to play around with. You can dip it in milk. Sometimes that'll work. And when they start sucking, if you're noticing that happening more frequently and they're actually sucking around the nipple and bringing it in, then you can try with actual milk. One other thing that I see work fairly frequently is providing a little bit of chin stabilization to your baby. So it kind of takes your little like Houdini or octopus arms because you need a lot of arms to do all the things that I'm telling you to do, but providing a little bit of support underneath the chin so it brings your baby's tongue up to the bottle and helps them make a seal around the bottle versus if their mouth is sort of open, they're having a harder time making a seal. So using either your pointer finger or middle finger or sometimes your ring finger and putting it right at the tip of their chin and moving it slightly upward. Tip 4, I want you to introduce a bottle when your baby is hungry, but I don't want them to be hangry. If they're already to the point where they're frustrated and then you try to give them a bottle, they're going to get frustrated a lot faster. So doing something, so maybe you nurse a little bit and then you can leave if you want to, or if you're going to be the provider that gives the bottle too, it is fine for you to be the one to actually give the bottle. I know I hear a lot of things about like mom needs to leave the house, mom needs to leave the block, mom needs to leave the state, whatever. I don't necessarily see that true in practice, though I have heard that that is one way to get babies to take bottles. It doesn't hurt to try, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be the thing, especially if you're noticing all these issues with stabilization in the mouth. Step 5, and this is the most important one, which is don't force it. So when babies are forced to take bottles and they are showing signs of frustration, they might move their heads back and forth. They might struggle to stabilize the bottle. That is all very normal when they're learning the skills again. But if your baby is getting really frustrated, like they're starting to get antsy, if they're starting to cry, if they're starting to get mad, we don't want to force it. We're going to stop. And then we will try again later when they're in a better mood. So usually I say trying about twice a day when times are not stressful. So low stimulation, low stress. Though some babies I do find they do better if they're like bouncing on a ball or if they're outside, they're in a position that's different. A lot of trial and error when it comes to bottle or refusal. So most of the time it's low stimulation and quiet environment. Though some babies do better with the exact opposite. I want to talk a little bit about the difference between bottle refusal and how we approach it for babies that are 3 or 4 months versus babies who are 6 months and older. So when babies are 3 to 4 months and they are not taking a bottle and you're trying all the things, if things are not successful, like I said, I want you to go find somebody who is versed in bottle refusal and have them assess your baby's mouth, because sometimes there are things that are going on like a high palate or your baby isn't cupping right. There's something going on that you can work on at home that will potentially get them back to the bottle. Now, if you are breastfeeding and you are going back to work and your baby is still not taking a bottle, some of the ways that I see families handle it is that they ask for more work from home. They leave during lunch and nurse their baby. So they nurse their baby in the morning and then at lunchtime and then after work. Sometimes parents take extended leave because they don't have another option. It's not the nicest thing. And sometimes babies don't eat during the day. They're still trying to offer the bottle at daycare and they're not eating, but then they reverse cycle and they eat all of their food at night. It's not the ideal situation, but I want to share that babies will find ways to get milk even if it's not from the bottle. In worst case scenario, you can also give them something like an open cup or a syringe. Usually they're messy, but it is a way to get your baby some food while you're separated. If your baby is 6 months or older and they're refusing a bottle, I often recommend finding the right kind of sippy cup or straw cup or open cup that's going to work for your baby and focusing on introducing that versus introducing a bottle. Sometimes babies like a lot of control, so having something with the little handlebars to hold on and they can tip it up toward their mouth, they really love that. Even if it's not the most ideal shape for a nipple or is a true sippy cup, it's more important for them to get the calories than have the most ideal shape for a nipple. You can always start with that, whatever they're taking, and then progress to what is more ideal, like an open cup or a straw cup. And sometimes, like the case with my baby, he did fine on pouches. He would not take anything from a cup. We couldn't find a sippy cup that was really working for him. So we made little mixtures and concoctions with breast milk and formula and baby cereal. And then we put it in a pouch and he was able to take the pouch. And that way we were able to separate. I was able to go back to work around 9 months and he was able to get some nutrients while we were gone. And then we just breastfed the rest of the time. I want to leave you with this. Experiencing bottle refusal is one of the most stressful things a breastfeeding mom can go through. I know because I lived it and I felt immense pressure and a lot of worry, like what happens if my milk supply dips or what happens, is he going to starve? It's just really, really scary. And then one day they master a cup and then it goes away. But I hope these are tips that you can start doing to figure out how to solve bottle refusal. And if you can't on your own, which happens a lot, make sure to get help from a professional who has education doing so. And just remember, it's not because you did anything wrong. Your baby is not trying to manipulate you. They're not mad at you for trying to leave them. It is something going on inside of their mouth that's making it happen. I hope that you have an easy time handling your bottle refusal. Make sure to hit subscribe for bite-sized pieces of feeding information every week. Bye-bye.